Hello, everybody, and welcome to Yeager Stadium. This is our inaugural The RedHawk Reports pregame podcast. I'm Chris Vogt, joined by Kathan Babu from the Miami Student Sports Center from the Miami Students. So I want to thank you for joining us, man.
Of course, thanks for having me on.
Last week we were supposed to get this on the road, a home opener for Miami, but had some snafus. UNLV was plugging up stuff and they ended up shorting our breaker.
They tried taking over. They thought it was their home.
And I'm like, no way. You can't be doing that to us, man.
They saw Ox Vegas. They got confused.
Right, yeah. Well, there were a lot of fireworks last week for the home opener for the Miami RedHawks, and unfortunately, Miami was not able to sustain a couple leads. Three, I think, amounts to three. I think 2 possession leads.
That's right.
And we'll dive into that and what went on last week for Miami to get their first win. But first, let's start with the main reason why we're putting this together. It's we're kind of co-oping with the Red Brick Legacy. We were supposed to join forces with Red Brick Legacy spearhead Kyle Decker. Unfortunately, he's not be able to be here this week, but he was supposed to join us last week. Was excited about it, and then UNLV had to mess that up. UNLV messed up a couple things last week, didn't they? But the reason why we're doing this is because a pregame podcast, get everybody going. We'll talk to Chuck if he can make it out. Get a couple guests on the show, and Kathan is fortunate enough for Kathan to hop in.
Absolutely.
But let's talk about the RedHawks and what they've been kind of going through. Sort of similar vibes last year with a hellacious schedule in the early going. Can you kind of back me up on that and where that kind of defines where Miami's going right now?
Yeah, well, you got it right. We're 0-3, just like we were same time last year. I think the main difference is we are playing better and better each week.
Right.
Last year, you could argue we were getting worse and worse. We played a decent game against Northwestern, fell off against Cincinnati, and then Notre Dame. We don't even need to talk about what happened.
Right.
This year, we're playing better and better, where Wisconsin, our offense looked dismal. They didn't look like they knew what they were doing. Rutgers, they had a better idea, but defense was starting to falter. And then last week, they played their best game of the season so far, and the score doesn't reflect how good they actually performed. But I think it's just more getting comfortable. You have a new quarterback. You have a whole new O-line. You have half the team is brand new on defense. So getting everyone more adjusted to what football is like in Oxford is the main thing. And I think that this week is going to be the culmination, which is a good time going into conference play.
Yeah, one of the things that Chuck always says in his press conference is if you'd like to be a college football coach, this is the time to be a college football coach because you are coaching kids that you haven't even seen maybe 6 months, 3 months. You're coaching kids that are fresh, coming in, kids coming off the waiver wire. I'll say it.
Yeah.
It's the transfer portal. But to back Coach up on that, yes, he did say that they're getting better, but he said their floor is really low.
Yeah.
And their ceiling's high, but their floor is low. So when we say that the bad stuff is bad and it's timely bad, but the good stuff is good. Keith Reynolds kickoff return for a touchdown last week. However, you've got that fumble from
Kenny Tracy.
Kenny Tracy at the end. DeQuan Finn fumbles throws away that pick six, and that's what kind of started that momentum with UNLV. But what do you think Miami has to do to kind of get that floor and that ceiling to kind of come together?
I think the main thing is cohesion. They need to play 4 full quarters of good football. And I think this is something I noticed last year too, where they could play 2 solid quarters in the first half. They did that against Northwestern, Cincinnati, and I would argue against Notre Dame. And then the third and fourth quarter, they either get tired, they get overwhelmed, the opponent changes something, and they're not ready to adapt, and they struggle in the second half. They need to keep playing 60 full minutes of good football. They can't let off the gas. They can't. I think they did that against UNLV last week. They let off the gas in the third quarter. You go up by 14 points 2 times in one quarter and you lose, something went wrong, and whether that's momentum, whether that's they just got tired, whether they were surprised by something. You could argue it was injury, but they played 3 quarters with the backup quarterback, and they still played solid.
Right.
So they need to be able to play a full game instead of a half or 3 quarters of solid football, then letting loose in the fourth.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the put the foot on the neck.
Yeah, right.
and we haven't yet seen that. Well, we haven't been able to see a lead like we did last week. Not once, but 3 times. And I think there's an inner instinct that I think needs to be, I guess, unearthed with this RedHawks program. So hopefully we see that today. Lindenwood comes into town from Missouri, an FCS school. On my way here, I was thinking this. Yeah, we're playing an FCS school. Miami's playing an FCS school on homecoming. Do you look at this game and say, we're going to play Lindenwood, but we're actually going to try and play ourselves. And we're going to work on a lot of things, because if we can't do things well against Lindenwood, and it's no knock on Lindenwood because Miami has a 3-score favored line here, but if you can't work on the fundamental stuff in a game like this on homecoming against Lindenwood, where is Miami going to go?
It's to a certain extent, and I agree with you. No hate to Lindenwood. They're leading their conference in the FCS.
Right.
Their quarterback's doing really good. I forget the running back. He's really good.
Yep.
But if Miami struggles against Lindenwood this week, what's it going to look like against Akron next week? Or sorry, NIU next week, Akron in the couple weeks? This is a good game where it's going to show how is the rest of the year going to go. Because you could say the first 3 games, there were matchups that Miami was the underdog in each one. So, to a certain extent, you could expect them to lose. I think we should have won against UNLV. I think we should have won against Rutgers. But Vegas says otherwise. This is the first game where Miami should win and should win decisively. If they don't, now we have problems going into conference play. Because, A, Chuck doesn't believe in momentum. I believe strongly in momentum. I think that if the season's going bad so far, it's hard to take a fresh slate. It's hard to forget the previous week, knowing if you lose to an FCS team.
Right.
Yeah.
I think there was a lot of confidence talk, too. It's just nature to not be confident when you're 0-3.
Right.
I wouldn't be confident when I'm 0-3.
No one would be.
I'm not confident when I'm covering the program as an 0-3 reporter for the Miami RedHawks. So getting this win is huge. I think it's probably one. You win a game. This might be the biggest win that they have to get, and it's you want to win your Miami or your MAC conference games, but they have to win this game. This is a no-brainer. If you don't win this game, you're right. There are troubles. They're injury prone right now too. Let's talk about some injuries, and we couldn't quite get up the MAC injury report yet, but I'll refresh it and see where we're at. No, just still four teams on the injury report. But Coach didn't disclose the idea that you got Daquan Finn who went out. I don't think he's going to play today. He said doubtful. No. That doubtful means he's not playing. I don't think he needs to play this week. I think Henry Hessen can lead the charge, and he's been in situations like this before. He's a sound quarterback. He's been in this system for a while. What are your thoughts about Hessen and Finn's situation here?
I said it last year. I like Hessen a lot.
I agree.
I think he's been in Oxford long enough. He's been at Miami long enough. He knows the program. He knows how Chuck Martin runs his offense. And he showed it last year. He showed it against Central Michigan when Gabbert went out in the second quarter. It was in October. I forget the exact date. And he showed it last week in the second quarter when Finn went out, throwing that shovel pass to Keith Reynolds. Yeah, Keith Reynolds.
Yep, that was his first touchdown pass of the year.
That's right. I like Hessen going in, and I agree with you. Finn has no reason to play today, especially if he is concussed.
Right.
Why go out there and injure yourself more? He was concussed, and it looked like his leg, he was limping off the field.
Right.
There's no reason to play today.
Yep.
But I like Hessen's odds. I think the wide receivers, like we talked about earlier, they're getting more comfortable as well, where you don't need your seventh-year quarterback, your star player on the offense to go in. You can have your backup quarterback go in, and he's good enough where he's going to make those connections.
Right. Defensive-wise, I call him my buddy because I covered him through high school. Cy Walters, a given leader. He's worked his way in through the system. I remember, a couple years ago when he was handed a full-ride scholarship. Surprisingly, he was a walk-on, worked his ass off, and then here he is by Coach Martin saying,
"Hey." We wrote about him this week, actually.
Right,
it's going to be up soon.
Yeah, no, you wrote about him nice.
Yep.
Heck yeah, I'll have to read it. But no, just knowing that the defense has kind of been the mainstay for this RedHawks program the last couple of years, I'm very surprised at how they kind of folded in that second half against UNLV. What gives there?
Part of it, again, is, I believe, momentum. Chuck Martin's not going to agree with me on that, but I think that if you give up one 14-point score, you're going to have a little less confidence on the next drive. I think also injury-prone, like we mentioned, a couple linebackers, a couple defensive linemen are going out. But overall, I like the defense a lot. You mentioned Silas Walters. I think Corbin Houndry's another good one. Adam Trick's a good one. Nazir Washington. The defense is stacked. I would argue that the defense is looking better after the transfer portal this spring compared to the offense where everyone was new. But again, it's that comfortability. It's that getting more adjusted to Oxford. It's playing those power programs and those games where you're underdogs, where that kind of gets in your head a little bit. But this is a must-win game, and I expect to see 3 turnovers, either 2 interceptions and a fumble or something. They need a big game today.
Is Corporate Hondru going to dish out some of those interceptions, or is he going to take it himself?
Adam Trick one more time. Right,
take 6. Slap hands. Homecoming. Either I know I talked to a lot of high school coaches. They hate homecoming. It's a distraction. They want the kids' mindset on the game.
Right.
Yet it has to happen. Like you have to do it. It's part of the culture of high school sports. It's a memory. It's a thing that you never forget. What are your thoughts about college homecomings?
Well, it's
there's no dance.
It's interesting. I was telling you, I drove back from Cleveland 20 minutes ago.
Yeah.
And I drove in, and I see everyone uptown. Before we left, I saw the parade that was going through town, and it's that small-town American vibe.
Yeah.
You know, everyone getting together in the town center and just listening to the high school band and the college band that goes with them, marching through uptown, going up to Brick Street. Yeah. And I like the idea of everyone getting together. I could also see it being a distraction. I was never a football player in high school, so I'm not entirely sure how it would work, but I could see that getting in the players, distracting them from, watching film or whatever they need to be doing.
Yeah. I guess the last thing, I know we've been talking for quite a while, but let's talk about what we've seen, I guess, NIL-wise, and I think that was the main thing that we wanted to kind of bring to light with a lot of things that have been going on with college football. Ultimately, it's becoming a business, and you can't stray away from that. But I'd love to have Kyle Decker here to kind of talk about that and the spearhead for the Red Brick legacy, and hopefully we'll get 3 weeks from now, we got a next home game. But with the NIL, it's changed a lot of things in terms of how colleges operate and how their programs look, because this team may not look like this team next year.
Right.
Certainly didn't look like this team last year.
No.
Can you back me up on that? Like, it's wild. It's a wild time to be a college football player and fan.
Absolutely. NIL-wise, it's changing college football. It's changing college athletics as a whole. Basketball, we can a whole other piece.
Right.
I would argue that Miami is almost lucky to the extent where we are less affected as Ohio State or University of Michigan, Notre Dame, all those bigger schools, where realistically players aren't going to come here looking for money. They're going to come here looking for a spot at a Division I college.
I want game time.
I'm going to
play. I'm going to work my ass off and get up there.
Yeah, the transfer portal is separate from NIL in my opinion, and that has a hell of a lot more complications in college football and Miami as well. But NIL, you saw things last year with RedHawk Raz. You saw that Miami is getting involved in it, but it's never priority number one like it is at Ohio State or those bigger schools.
Well, it's almost like you sell the program, and that was one of the things I asked Coach last year. It said, how do you sell Miami football to players who are on the fence of coming here? It's, you got to find the kids that aren't looking for the dollar. That's one. And then two, you got to find kids who really want to be blue-collar players and work their way up through a program that works hard. I mean, we've been to practices. We see their practices. They work their butts off.
Oh, yeah.
And the coaches care, too. You're just not a number. You're just not we're just going to throw you out there because you're the best player on the team, like maybe you see at Ohio State or, LSU or wherever you see. We're putting the best player out there who works the hardest.
That's right.
And that's where you see Miami contending for a MAC title every year.
That's right. Players come here because they want to play traditional, hard-nosed, competitive football. You're not going to see the same starters come out every single week because the next linebacker on the depth chart could be working just as hard, working his ass off just as hard in practice, and he's going to take the starting spot.
Right.
And when you look at the legacy, you walk past that stadium and you see the cradle of coaches, you look at the Miami RedHawks Wikipedia and you see, I didn't know Sean McVay went here, I didn't know John Harbaugh went here. There's a tradition here, and that's far more important than how much money a player is going to make if he shows up in Oxford.
When you say that, it always makes me feel like I'm very fortunate, and I don't know how you feel this too, because graduating, and you'll be graduating here, this year?
This spring.
Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you.
And I graduated 05, and it's like, man, I'm very fortunate to be a part of a program like this because you just don't, you get the degree and you go. Like, no, Miami isn't a school that you do that to. Yeah, you might do that with Ohio State, or you might do that with, but this is a small school. It's homey. It's you call it your school.
That's right.
And I feel fortunate to be here to cover the RedHawks.
Community oriented.
Absolutely.
When you see someone wearing a Miami M, you're like, hey,
there it is.
We went to school together, and our graduating class was what? A couple thousand people.
Right.
Not that big.
Right. Well, we're going to wrap it up here by talking about the rest of the season for the RedHawks. We'll kind of get a synopsis here. You'll say it every year. Miami isn't an 0-3 team. I'm going to say it right now. They're not an 0-3 team. You hate to look at the stats. You hate to look at the overall numbers side of things. And I know that Chuck Martin is not doing that. He doesn't give a shit. He doesn't care. But from here, is this Miami's? You go week by week, but is this Miami's new season right here? Does this start right here, right now?
Yeah,
does it start every week?
It doesn't start next week. It starts this week. This is the first game, like we talked about, where Miami is not an underdog. Stats shouldn't matter. Odds shouldn't matter. To a certain extent, it does from a viewer standpoint. This is when the season starts. Same thing as last year. UMass was when the season started, and you saw they went off. We don't talk about the Toledo game, but everything after that, they went 7 straight, and they made it back to Detroit. Season starts this week because this week is going to determine how they play next week. And next week is going to determine how they play in Akron and then in Eastern Michigan and from there on forwards.
Well, we got about 40 minutes until kickoff. I'm Chris Vogt. Kathan
Babu.
Yes, nailed it. For the Miami student, he does a wonderful job. He's got that Cy Walters feature coming out. So stay with the Report Ohio. Ultimately, the Miami student and the Report Ohio are legitimately the go-to people for your Miami RedHawks athletics. So 40 minutes till kickoff. Stay tuned with us. We'll go ahead and give you guys some updates throughout the game, and we'll see you next time on the RedHawk Report.
Thank you.